All right, well, thank you so much for joining us tonight for the Radon Information Session. We are launching the 100 Test Kit Challenge in 3 Manitoba communities, so we are so glad that you have all joined us. So we have the RM of Rockwood, we have Stonewall, and then we also have the RM of Minto and Minnedosa. And so joining me tonight, I do have representatives from each of the community, Lane Wilson from the RM of Rockwood, Kim Newman from Stonewall, and then Krista Dillabo from the RM of Minto and Minnedosa. Actually, Krista, I didn't ask how to say your name. Was that close enough?
Yep, no, that's perfect.
Okay, all right, good. So thank you to all three of you. The 100 Test Kit Challenge is a national program. We provide funding, we get funding from Health Canada to be able to provide this free to our participating communities, but we do need a local person to help us with. So we are really thankful to Krista, Kim, and Lane for helping us coordinate it and communicating out. So thanks for joining us again tonight. And we also have two CNRP professionals here, so mitigation professionals, to answer your questions about mitigation. So it's great to have Eric and Bjornson and Chase Borgstrom as well from Manitoba, our local CNRPP professionals. So they also are going to join us at the end to answer questions. So thanks to both of you for joining us. And then we also have Dr. Anne-Marie Nickel, and she is joining us from Simon Fraser University. She is part of our Take Action on Radon team, our epidemiologist specialist, and Anne-Marie is going to start us off.
Sorry, my background was acting very strange. We're upside down and backwards at SFU today or tonight. Thank you, Pam. Excuse me. In this conversation we're going to have tonight, and I really would like it to be a conversation. So no question is too small or strange. Pam and I have heard many questions, but we're always up for a new one. So if you have a good radon question, and I know people in Manitoba have known about radon for a long time. So if you've got a burning question, put it in the chat. So we're going to talk about what radon is. I'm going to talk about radon and health effects. I'm going to hand it back to Pam because she knows more about the building sciences. And then sounds like we have lots of radon remediation specialists on the line. So that's great. And then we'll go over the nuts and bolts of the 100 Test Kit Challenge. And I am calling in from the traditional and unceded lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people here in the west coast of British Columbia. But Take Action is really proud to unite members from across Canada, which encompasses many of the traditional territories of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. So we're just very grateful to be able to run this program and for everyone who's involved in it tonight. Next slide, please, Pam. So if this is your first time hearing about radon or you only knew a little bit about it, then you're actually in good company. Less than half of Canadians still actually know what radon is. So thank you for coming and learning a little bit more about it. And now you will actually go out into the world knowing more than most Canadians about radon. It is a product of the decay of uranium, which occurs naturally throughout Canada. And it's the only gas phase of radioactive decay. So radon is a gas, and when you inhale that gas, again, it's part of the radioactive decay of uranium. It gives off a little bit of radiation, and this leads to the development of lung cancer. And we know it's actually the leading cause of lung cancer in people who don't smoke. And then if you do smoke, there's a relationship between radiation and PM 2.5 that increases the risk significantly. Next, please. So radon, because it is such a serious exposure, is designated as a known or #1 or primary human carcinogen. Many other international organizations, including the WHO, IARC from France, the US EPA, all have similar consensus documents to Health Canada's. It's chronic inhalation that leads to lung cancer. And unlike many other carcinogens where they have to test them on mice and rats or other lab animals, the evidence that we have that radon causes lung cancer actually comes from Canadian people's exposures while working in uranium mines and other hard rock mines. So Canadians, cohorts of French, European miners, and people in the United States, it became really clear as people did this work that they developed lung cancer. They looked into all the different things that could contribute to this. And what became very clear was it was not the uranium or the hard rock minerals themselves, but the gas, radon gas that was given off that contributed to lung cancer. And so this is why we know so clearly that it is a human carcinogen. And Health Canada has crunched some numbers, and they estimate that about 3,200 or over 3,000 Canadians actually die every year from radon-related lung cancer. Next, please. Now, as I mentioned, radon and smoking or tobacco smoke don't mix very well together. If you just have high radon, your risk of developing lung cancer goes up to 1 in 20, which is considerable. But if you smoke, it's 1 in 3. And that's because there's a synergistic relationship between tobacco smoke and radiation. It's called a submultiplicative relationship because it's not completely times, but it does mean that the risk is quite a bit higher. So if you're someone who does smoke, or if you live in a house with a smoker, the one thing that you can do that's much easier than quitting is to test and reduce radon levels, and that will again considerably decrease the risk of developing lung cancer. Here in British Columbia, we try to provide people with summaries of their lifetime risk estimates between smokers and non-smokers. So what we've done here is stratified radon risk at different concentration levels for people with different smoking experiences. So in Canada, our regulatory guideline is 200 becquerels per meters cubed. It's not necessarily a safe line, but it is a regulatory line in which you want to take steps to reduce your risk. Anything over 200, your risk goes up. So you can see that by the bottom of this table, the numbers get bigger. And so as you have more radon in your indoor environment, so above 200, above 600, here in British Columbia, we actually have some regions that have very high levels. It's not uncommon to find homes with 1,000 or 2,000 in them. But you can see that as that exposure goes up, we see an incredible increase in risk for non-smokers, but also particularly for people who smoke. Next, please. So how do you get exposed to this? None of you work in mines, I'm sure, underground mines. So how would you possibly be exposed to this gas? It's because it's a soil gas, so it exists in the soil underground. Gases don't like to stay trapped and cold. They want to move. So they take any opportunity to those particles to move from the cold ground into warmer spaces. So anything that has windows and doors and a roof and walls, the radon gas can migrate up inside through cracks in floors or walls or sumps or drains. Here in BC, they're building huge homes which settle quite quickly over time, and then there can be a lot of cracks in the foundation. So that's a real problem. Levels are generally higher in the basement and ground contact rooms. Again, that's because radon originally comes as a soil gas. Next, please, Pam. So as I mentioned, radon can be a problem in any environment, not just a home. Anything that's got walls and roofs and windows and doors. So that includes schools. Any building with ground contact has the potential. We've even seen mobile homes that are well skirted. For energy loss reasons, those can have elevated levels as well. And workplaces, so Health Canada recommends that all buildings be tested for radon. I can assure you that all federal buildings actually are tested for radon. So they've already gone and done the work for themselves, and now they're recommending that the rest of us test all our houses as well. So how do you test for radon? It's an odorless, colorless, radioactive gas. So the only way that you can know if you have a high radon level is if you test your own home. You cannot guess what your radon level is from what your neighbor's radon level is. That's because your home was likely built differently. You may use your home differently. It may have settled. You may have added energy efficiency retrogrades or upgrades, and we know those can increase radon risk. So you might also have a home office in the basement. So how you use your house is very different from people down the street. So you really can't guess. The only way to know is to test, and Pam is going to talk to us a bit more, I think, about testing at this point.
Sounds good. Thanks, Anne-Marie. So when you test for radon, you want to make sure that you test using a long-term test. And the reason is that radon levels can change. So radon is a gas, and gases move from areas of high pressure to low pressure. And so the ground underneath our homes or buildings are under a high pressure, and the air inside our home typically is under a low pressure. And so this difference of pressure draws the radon gas into our house. But it's not typically a stable draw or even amount. It can change. And so there could be environmental things that change this, such as, weather. Low pressure systems can come in and they can impact the amount of gas that changes. Temperature differences. So right now, as our temperatures are going down and the temperature is getting colder and the ground is getting colder, then that also can start to change. But there can also be changes in the soil, so things like large construction or earthquakes or things that may impact the amount of cracks and fissures in the ground can impact it. So that could be over time. But then, for some of those reasons, we recommend testing for long term. It also can change how you use your home. So things inside your conditioned space of your house can also change these pressure changes, because things like your kitchen vent fan, if you turn it on and you vent air out of the house and there's no makeup air, that can kind of depressurize the interior space and draw, it tries to make that up so it can draw air in again from the soil. So things like kitchen fans, bathroom fans, dryers will tend to do that. And if they're not properly balanced, can have an impact on the radon levels up and down. And so Health Canada recommends that when you test for radon, that you test over a period of 91 days for a minimum, and that you test during the winter. And so that's why we launched the 100 Test Kit Challenge program in the fall, why November is our Radon Action Month. And in this program, we'll often talk about 100 days, and we've just kind of worked that into our language because it's 100 tests, 100 days, just to kind of help you remember. But the goal is that we want you to test for a minimum of 91. It can be longer. So these detectors that we're using can be used up to a year. But the reason that we focus on the 91 days, one is because of the collection. So we'll be able to do a mass collection and help you with the cost of shipping. And then also, because we find that if you test for longer than 3 months, it's really hard to remember to get that kit back. And so we have found that going longer doesn't necessarily improve the measurement, because it does tend to get it out of our minds and we tend to forget that we have it. So that's another reason why a 3-month testing period is a really good period of time. Okay, so the devices that we're using for this program are called AlphaTrack devices. They are a one-use device, and they need to go back to the lab to be analyzed. And so if you were to go and purchase this device, then it would come with a mailer that would return it to the lab, or if it didn't, then you'd have to pay to ship it to the lab. But as part of our program, we utilize collection. So you're going to drop it off at the same location as you pick it up, and then we will return the kits to the lab altogether. So these devices are accurate, and we know this because we do testing on it. So when you do test and you get your report, you can have confidence in the radon levels. Now, when you get the report, on it will be a measurement, and radon is measured in becquerels per meter cubed, and that's just simply a measurement of radioactivity in a volume of air, because as Anne-Marie said, radon is radioactive, and so that's the principle that we use, or the property of the gas that we use in measuring it. And Health Canada recommends that if your levels are over 200 becquerels, that you take action to reduce it, and that you would do that within a year. And so if you do need to reduce your radon levels, CNRPP is our national certification program, and you can go to the CNRP website, you can click on the Find a Professional, and as I mentioned off the top, we've got 2 that are joining us tonight from Manitoba, and so you can find them on the list, and they can help you with reducing your radon levels. And we do recommend using a certified professional because they have been trained in the techniques, and they have a certification program that supports both them and you. Now, a radon mitigation is typically the most effective way. And so I'll let Chase and Eric answer more technical questions, but I'm just going to quickly go through a quick overview so that you've got a concept of what a radon mitigation system is. And then if you've got technical questions, feel free to throw them in and then they'll answer them in a bit. But generally, the mitigation is the number one way that we use to reduce radon levels. And you can see on the screen here that it involves a pipe that provides a pathway for the gas to go from beneath your home up and out of your home. And so the pipe goes down into the subslab space. So this little thing here that sort of looks like a tire is actually just a void space. So there's just an empty space there that the pipe goes into. And then it draws the air up and discharges it outside of your house. And then in the outside air, it dissipates to quite low levels. And now, in addition to this, a fan is added so that it moves the air through the pipe system just enough so that instead of coming into your home, that it goes up and out. And so ideally, when this is installed properly, it should be a low wattage fan that's just gently easing the air up and out so that it's not coming into your home. And it needs to be installed in such a way that the foundation is well sealed so that it's not drawing conditioned air down. And then it also needs to be installed so that there's proper clearances on the outside. And so there's different rules on that. And then to make sure the proper piping and fan is used as well. So here's a couple images. In addition to the system, there'll be a little bit of a monitor to make sure that the fan is working. Often it's quiet. It's quite quiet. In fact, my house, I can't hear my fan at all. And so the monitor, either a YouTube will show that it is drawing air, or sometimes there'll be an electronic monitor that will sound alarm if the fan stops working. And now, if you do need to install a mitigation system, there are some financial supports available. So the Canadian Lung Association has a radon mitigation grant called the Lungs Matter Grant, and this provides a $1,500 towards the cost of mitigation. So you do need to apply for this grant prior to starting the work. And then when you do apply, you do need to qualify. So there's one of two ways to qualify. You can either qualify based on income. So it is for those that are low to moderate income. So if you're beneath the median income for the province, or if there's an occupant in the home with lung cancer, then you can also qualify from that. Then in addition, when you apply, you'll need a long-term radon test, which you'll get from this program, and a quote from a CNRP professional. Okay, so that's some of the basics of radon. So feel free, if I didn't cover the questions that you have, then you can put those in the chat in the Q&A. But I'm going to now go into the program, how to get your kit, what to do once you get the kit. And so basically, it's easy steps. You're going to go pick up your kit, and it comes in a little envelope like this. Inside the envelope is the detector and instructions. And then on the outside of the envelope is a little bit of a checklist, and that'll help you walk through the steps as well. When you set up your detector, you will need to record your serial number with your start date and your contact information. And this will make sure that we get you the information. And so I'll explain how to do that. And then once you've set it up, then you can leave it for the 100 days. And during the collection week, you can take it back to the location that you picked it up from and drop it off. And then we'll make sure that it gets to the lab. Okay, so once you pick up your envelope, then you're going to take it home and you're going to set that detector up right away. So take out the detector from your envelope, and it will come in a little plastic sealed package. So you just need to cut open that plastic and take out the black detector. And so the one that we're using is a little square detector, but these pictures give you an idea of some locations where you could put it. So we want you to test the air that you're breathing. So you want to test in a room where you spend 4 hours a day or more. And so I want you to think about your home. Think about your basement first. So if you have a bedroom or a home office or a family room in your basement where someone spends 4 hours a day or more, then that's a good room to put the test. If you don't spend that amount of time in your basement, then think about your main floor. So again, a bedroom, a home office, a family room are great locations. So pick a location within one of those rooms where the detector will stay for 4 months, or sorry, for 3 months. And there's a couple things to keep in mind. So one is you want to keep it at least a meter away from the window, and you want to keep it up off the ground. And so put it on typically the best location is in your breathing zone. So the kind of the space where in that room, you would be breathing the air. So think about a table or a shelf in that room. If you have kids or pets and you're thinking it might not stick around on that surface, then you can hang it from an interior wall or you can hang it down from the ceiling. So just make sure it comes down a little bit so it's not right up close to the ceiling. But any of those are good locations. So again, put it in the space where you spend 4 hours a day or more, on a shelf or table, and about a meter away from the window and not on the floor. So the key to think about with testing is you want to test the air that you're breathing because the purpose is to understand your exposure. So don't try and find the radon. Sometimes people are like, well, I know it's here and I know it's in the crawl space or coming in from these areas. And so they put it there, but that's not the way we test for radon. Okay, so once you set up the test, then we need you to record your serial number with your name, contact information, and the start date. And so you're going to log in to this website. So there's a QR code on your checklist, or there's a website link, or in our emails, we give you a link. So there's a few different ways that you can find this. And you're going to go and click the Start Survey and register your information. If you have trouble with the site or challenges with using the computer, you can give us a call. Our information is on the envelope, so we're happy to walk it through as well. So on the start form, there are some mandatory pieces of information, and these include already things I've mentioned: your name, your serial number, and the start date. There is also some optional questions. And so we are doing a little bit of research with this project. And so there'll be little questions like about your house. So, is it a single dwelling or a semi-attached? What year of construction was it? So if you want to go and answer those questions, then that would be great. That helps us with our research. But if you don't want to or you don't have time, no problem. You can just say no to the additional questions and you can stop after the required ones. And that's it. Then, some of you, 10% of you, will receive 2 detectors. And so I mentioned earlier that these detectors are accurate, and that's because we test them. We know they're accurate. So when we put them in through quality control, we have a number of things that we do to make sure that they're accurate. And one of them is duplicates. And so the 10% of you that get an envelope that have 2 detectors in it, we want you to set those up together. So open up the packages together, put them in place side by side, and then at the end of the testing period, drop them back together. And those will just help us measure that they're measuring consistently. So we've used these detectors before. We've had good results with them, so we are confident, but we're always checking them just to make sure. Okay, and then you can enjoy the 100 days. The holidays will be in there, and then in the spring, it'll be time to return the detector. And so on your envelope, it does remind you of the week that is the collection week, as well as the location that you're going to drop off the detector. So during that week, you're just going to go in, drop it off, and then when you do that, you can keep the envelope. So the envelope has your serial number on it, and then it has a place for you to record your start and end date. And so if you drop off the little square detector loose in the box at your drop-off location, and you keep that envelope now is for you to keep until you get your report. So that has all the required information that you will not remember if you don't keep it. So obviously you know your own contact information, but the envelope will have your start, end, and your serial number, which is stuff that we will need to help you get your report if something fails and we don't get all the other information from the online versions. Okay, so then after we ship the detectors to the lab analyzes the detectors and provides you with an average radon level that was in your home while the detector was open in your house. And on the radon report, it'll look something like this. It'll have a number. And then it should have some recommendations. And so if that number is above 200, it will recommend that you take action. Now, as part of this program, we are providing the community with some data. And so what we do is we summarize the information. So the individual report is private to you. So we don't share that information with anybody. It's just between you and the lab. But the summarized report, it provides information summarized so that we understand how many homes were tested and how many were above the guideline. So in this report that we worked with last year with the RM of McDonald, you can see that the green homes represents the ones that were under 100, the yellow represents ones between 1 and 200, and then the red represents the homes that were above 200. All right. So for next step for you is to go pick up your detector. So starting tomorrow, you can go into the location within your community to pick up your detector. And so I'm going to start with Krista. So for those in the RM of Minto-Odanah and Minnedosa, where can they go to get their detector?
Okay, they can either come here to the RM office during regular office hours, which are Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 4:30. We are open during the noon hour, or they can go to the Minnedosa Regional Library. And they're Monday through Friday from 9 to 5 and Saturdays from 9 to 1.
Perfect. And if you are in that community, there are extra tests still available. So the arm of Rockwood and Stonewall, all those 100 have been snapped up. But if you're in the arm of Minto, then you can go in and let your neighbors know to go in and pick them up.
And so as long as they register before the 24th, that they can still have the test.
Yeah, exactly. So tell your friends and neighbors to go in and pick it up, but we want as many of them gone during the first week, but our absolute cutoff date will be November 24th.
Okay,
Right, Krista?
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good. So we will send you a reminder email tomorrow with that, but feel free to let your friends and neighbors know. Good. Okay, thanks, Krista. All right, Kim, for those that are in Stonewall, they can go and pick them up. Do you want to give them some instructions?
Yes, um, again, forgive me, I have a cold. Participants can go into the town hall, 293 Main Street, Stonewall, from Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30 to pick up the kits.
Perfect. Thanks, Kim. And so in Stonewall, we have had a good solid list of people that are interested in the kits, which is great. And so we're only able to provide 100 free. So those of you that have gotten the email saying that you're, confirmed and you can go pick up the kit, then we encourage you to go in this week and pick it up as soon as possible, because after the 14th, we will open it up to the wait list on a first come, first serve basis. So go in and get it so that you make sure you get that free detector, because there is also a full wait list of people that wish they could get a detector and weren't able to. So make sure you do that. Good. Okay. And then Lane, for people from RM of Rockwood.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, we're very happy to participate in this program. So occasionally we do get, our municipal office gets confused for Stonewall. So if you come to Rockwood and your intention is to be in Stonewall or vice versa, don't worry, we'll figure you out and make sure you're in the right place. So our building, we house South Interlake Planning as well. So for those that haven't come to visit us, you come through the front doors, 285 Main, just north of the town of Stonewall municipal offices. You come in, you want to head left into our administration offices, and we've got some happy faces, and I'm sure we'll greet you appropriately.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Lane. And again, RM of Rockwood, we also have a wait list. So there are people that would love to get a detector if you're not able to pick it up. So make sure you go in if you're registered and pick it up. If any of you are on the wait list for either Stonewall or RM of Rockwood, then we will let you know the Monday after, I think or the day after the last pickup day for the registered list. So after the 14th, we will check in with everybody and see if there are still detectors left, and then we'll send an email out to let you know that you can go in and pick up a kit. Good. All right. And then, so that's picking up. When it's time to return the kit, then you're going to drop it off during the week of the 23rd to the 27th. So you can just go back into these locations and drop it off. All right, good. So, Anne-Marie, I'll get you checking the questions, but I am going to start with introducing Chase and Eric. So thank you both for coming and joining us today to answer questions about mitigation. So Chase, maybe I'll get you to start. So if somebody needs to mitigate their home, then what can they expect when you come to their house?
You can expect myself personally, or if it's Eric, I imagine he probably has a couple guys working with him as well. We'll come in, we'll be mostly in the basement. We make sure to be as clean, polite as possible. We're usually in and out anywhere from 4 hours to 6 or 7 hours, depending on how hard the mitigation is. Most of the ones we've done lately have averaged about 4 hours. So we're in and out in 4 hours. When we're done, we usually leave you a package. And if it's not the same day, we will email it to you later at a later date, just explaining to you what we did there, what fan we chose for you, why we chose that fan, what kind of system we put in place. And we put it all into a nice little package, and you get that to keep or give to the next homeowner if you sell the house or intend to move, whatever that may be.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, Chase.
You're welcome.
Eric, sometimes some of our homes are challenging because we're on some tight soils in the province. And I didn't mention, but normally I talk about the building code. So our new building code gives the granular layer, but if you go into an old house that doesn't have that, do you want to talk about how you're able to still mitigate?
Yeah, sure. So maybe just a little review. So like Pam said, the primary strategy for mitigation is to get as airtight a layer at the basement floor as possible, and then to create a very slight negative pressure under that floor compared to the air pressure in your basement, so that air does not migrate from the ground into the house through any little gaps and cracks that remain that we're not able to get sealed. And so without that, and so we achieve that negative pressure by removing some air with a fan from under the floor and exhausting it to the outdoors. And that fan sucks from typically one single point in the floor and extends a slight negative pressure field under the entire basement floor. And so if we have a granular material like pea gravel or clean stone, which is the norm for new construction homes now and has been since about the mid 80s, even late 80s, then that is usually fairly predictable and easy. We have very little force required and flow to extend that pressure field. But it can be a bit more difficult if we have compacted clay soils, which is common in houses that are older than, say, 1980, and particularly if they're older than 1960, it kind of gets more dense the older the house gets. But inevitably, with maybe more effort or sometimes multiple suction points, or a bit more strategy, we're able to solve these problems. And uh, yeah, so we really don't know how difficult a job's going to be until the job's done. So we're really reluctant to look at a project and say, "Oh, that's going to be a straightforward one because it's newer," or "That's going to be a difficult one because it's older." Yeah, we just have to show up prepared for either a straightforward project or a difficult one, and work away at it until we solve it.
Nice. Sounds good. Thanks, Eric. All right, Anne-Marie, I think we have a ton of questions, which is great. So do you want to help me with working
Sure.
through these questions?
I have a lot of questions here on the line. It's true. Okay, I'm gonna ask this question to Chase. Chase, somebody asked if they have a radon pipe in the basement
Yep.
with a cap on it.
Yep.
Should they test by taking the cap off and putting the device next to the pipe?
Absolutely not. At that point, you're pretty much mining radon into your basement. Anywhere where Pam has said a bedroom, even a table in your rec room in the basement is a much better place than taking that cap off. You're just inviting that radon into your basement.
And then that cap, so what happens then if you have high radon and you have that pipe in the basement? What happens then?
So theoretically, if that pipe is already in your basement, you can attach your mitigation system to that pipe. But the problem is is they're not necessarily always in the best places. So some of them are underneath a set of stairs, and you have not really the best places to get that gas outside. So what we kind of do is assess that when we get there, and then choose a location that might be more feasible to get that gas from below the floor to outside.
Okay, thank you. So
You're
don't
welcome.
go looking for the worst level of radon in your house.
No, absolutely not.
Good. Okay, so, and Pam, here's a question for you. What is the average cost of mitigation in your province?
Yeah, so through the Take Action on Radon program, Anne-Marie and I have been doing research on costs across the province or across the country. And so on average, we did see the cost, and this was based on our data up to 2022, at about $3,000. And so typically we say about 3 to 5,000 is, a cost that you can anticipate. As I mentioned, there is a grant to help you with it, but also I didn't mention the fact that Manitoba Hydro also has a loan program. So if you want to help with financial support, you could access the Manitoba Hydro loan program and then pay off the mitigation on your bill. It is a little paperwork heavy, and so just to give you a heads up that you will have to make sure that you fill out quite a bit of paperwork. They do have a manual signature system, so there'll be some forms that you'll need to complete and manually sign. But the cost can change, so we do see it go up in a more complicated home. So something with a large footprint, a crawl space where it needs a membrane may increase the costs. Or sometimes if you have complicated architecture, it just can mean trying to find a different route for the pipe out, and so it can just add complexity to it. So things like that. Often in different parts of the country, I'm talking about really, really old homes. So in the Atlantic region, there's hundreds of years old homes, and those can add up. So those can be factors as well.
Thank you, Pam. Okay, I have a question for Eric. This is a really good question from Jerry and Carol Brown. They ask, can the testing device be put near a TV, computer, or other electronic device? Is that a problem?
Yeah, so I'm not certain if it's a problem or not, but it's not recommended. I think yeah, Pam might even know that offhand better because that's not something I have offhand, but I think
Yeah.
there is
Sorry.
no problem.
So
No,
yeah, the
no problem.
rules actually are to avoid putting it in that location. And so I actually should note, when you get the instructions, we have followed Health Canada's instructions in the instructions that we give you. But to be honest, those were written by scientists. And so you don't have to follow all those measurements. And so we've actually done research where we have put devices all over a room. So we've taken about 20 homes, we've put 20 devices everywhere in a room to measure, like, does the radon level change if you put a detector way up high or down low? And that's where we've come to basically three things. One is keep it a meter away from the window that opens. Keep it up off the floor. Don't put it on directly on the floor, and keep it out of a drawer. So in all honesty, the drawers didn't have a problem, but we didn't test all well-sealed drawers. So I would just say keep it out of drawer. So put it up on, in open airspace. But yeah, so we also don't recommend putting it on rock. So if you have a fireplace that's a rock fireplace, I wouldn't put it on there. Or if you have, we typically keep it out of kitchen. So if you have a countertop, I wouldn't put it there anyways, but we wouldn't put it in the kitchen. But keep it off rocks like that because they can just have background emissions.
Okay. Thank you, Pam. I have another question, and here's one for you, Eric, that might be more up your alley. If you put in a mitigation system, does that need to be set up in perpetuity?
Yeah, that's a good question. And yeah, that is how they work. So they are designed to maintain a slight negative pressure. It's called active soil depressurization or subslab depressurization, or sometimes in a crawl space, it's called submembrane depressurization. And so it will remove in anywhere from maybe 5 to 50 cubic feet per minute of air. So not a lot of air, but it's continually moving air to maintain a very slight negative pressure under the floor. And it does need to stay on. So it's not a matter of getting the radon out and then it'll stay out. It's a matter of keeping it from coming in by maintaining that pressure. And so if the fan is turned off or if power goes out, usually it'll only take about maybe 6 to 12 hours for the radon level to rise up to its pre-mitigation levels. Um, and when you turn the fan back on, say for example, it would take about say 12 to 36 hours for the levels to drop again. So we're waiting for the existing radon in the home to dissipate, and then it finds its new equilibrium.
Okay, thank you. Chase, did you have something to add to that? You had your hand up.
I actually just have something to add to Pam's last point, and because I kind of see it in the chat here as well. We don't have to change our lives when we're testing. Like, you don't have to turn your furnace off. You don't have to turn your HRV off. You go about living your everyday life. The tester just sits there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the only thing I wanted to add.
Yeah, perfect. And to that point, you only need one tester. So I see some questions about like, kids' rooms, which room do you pick? You only need to test one in your home, and that'll give you a good idea of what the levels are. So you can pick whoever spends the most time in their bedroom, maybe. You can pick that. I have sometimes a question about a nanny suite, or maybe one kid keeps their door closed all the time. And I've actually done tests like that too, where I've done them inside and out. And typically, it doesn't change the airflow unless it's a really well-sealed door. But most indoor doors, the air is just going to flow around as the air is circulated around the house with the usual HVAC system. So the levels will be fairly even in the rooms.
There's another question. So I think maybe this is for you, Pam. Someone's family member has a digital panel that measures all sorts of different things in a home. Can you comment on the precision and or accuracy of that device? I believe it's an AirThings panel.
Yeah, so we have done research. So yeah, the detectors we're using in this program are one-use detectors, but there are electronic radon monitors available. And so you can go on the CNRPP website and find our list of devices that we recommend. So AirThings has a couple different models, and we have tested a couple of them. So you can go on and see the ones that we have tested. We are doing this annually, so we are constantly reviewing models, so there may be more that are added, but until, we can't necessarily recommend them until they've been reviewed and passed our test. So you can go to cnrpp.ca and find our consumer report there to see if that model is on the report. There are a number that are not recommended. So if it's not recommended, then I for sure wouldn't buy it. If it's just not listed on the report, then it probably means that we're doing, ongoing research, and it may pop up on our report in the next version. I saw another question about whether schools are being tested. And so that's a really good question. One of the points I was going to talk about in the announcement section was that we have a radon action plan in Manitoba. And one of our key points is to make sure that schools and childcare centers are tested. So we do recommend that schools and childcare centers be tested. It is not mandatory at this point. The Manitoba government did issue a recommendation to schools through the Department of Education a number of years ago. So they have provided some, suggestion that the schools should be tested, but we don't have clear information on the testing yet across the province. So I know I've had a few people reach out to me and say, oh, they're teachers and they've seen them in their schools. So I do know that there are schools that are testing, but we've been asking for the data to be just transparent. So we have it clear that all the schools have been tested. We haven't got that yet, but we understand that, it's on its way.
Pat, there's a lot of questions about wait lists and people, if people can pick them up or if they're not going to be available and people are going on vacation. So perhaps can some of the people from the municipalities comment on, will you have the take back be flexible, or are there, yes, I'm not exactly sure how people want to answer those questions from the municipalities.
Yeah, so maybe I'll just quickly give a quick summary that
Okay.
if you registered for a kit and you're not able to go pick it up, then as long as somebody goes in and knows your name, because the municipalities all have a list of who registered. So as long as they have your name, then the person just needs to give the name and then can pick up your kit for you. And so if you are not on the list, then you'll have to wait till that wait list opens. If you're not sure, then you can send me an email and I can certainly check and see if you're on the list. And then the question about being away. So if you're going to be away for a duration of time in this 3-month testing, I wouldn't recommend testing. I don't know if Eric and Chase want to jump in on this, if you've had experience with this, but I have had a couple people that have put their detectors in when they're gone and their house is closed up, and the levels have gone up unusually high. And so then when they test during the time when they're occupied in the house, it's significantly different than when they're not in the house. So my recommendation is that if you're, a snowbird or you're going to be away for an extended time, to not test during that time, to wait. And so, here's another, if you aren't there at home during the week when you're dropping it off, or you forget to drop the kit off, you can mail it back to us. And in fact, our drop-off location is in the city. So it's on the instructions. So you can mail it or you can drop it off at the location on the instructions. Oh yeah, Kim, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, just a little. The collection, of course, is at the end of the 100 days. So if any of the participants are going to mail it in on their own or drop it off at your location in Winnipeg, please contact the town administration office at 467-7979 and let CJ know that you're doing that. And so she won't expect that as part of the collection, that kit as part of that collection.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Kim.
There's
Good.
some interesting technical questions that have come in.
Okay, I'm just going to throw it back to Eric.
Okay.
Eric, have you had any experience with people closing up their home? Just gone high at all?
No, I wouldn't say so. I guess I would say as if you're only gone for a small portion of that test period, it's not really much of an issue. So if you're gone for, in my opinion, 2 weeks of
2
the
weeks,
90 days,
yeah.
I wouldn't be concerned about that.
Yeah.
More if you're gone for 60 of the 90 days or more, because that little bit of change over the 2 weeks won't have a big effect on the result.
Yeah, good point. I was trying to explain it's like a percentage. So if you do the percentage, you'll know how many days it's impacting. So yeah, a couple weeks will probably be fine. A month or longer, you might want to consider delaying it.
Okay, Eric, how do you know where the best location is for finding radon gas?
I'm not quite sure I can guess as to how to interpret that question. I guess I wonder, how do you interpret that question? There's 2 ways I could interpret: is where geographically is radon the highest, maybe, or where in a house is radon the highest, or
This is a question, is a bit more to the question. They have a pipe under the stairs, and it seems that it might be hard to put the pipe, install it elsewhere, but how can they find in the house where the best place is to put the pipe?
Okay,
and then
perfect. So that's we call that the selecting the suction point location. And so if there's already an existing provision, then someone else has attempted to select that location during the construction of the house. And sometimes it's in a good spot and sometimes it's not. And so, but if we're doing a retrofit, or if we decide that provision is not in a suitable location, we have to choose a new spot. And so inevitably, we usually end up somewhere in the mechanical room, just because we don't want to have it out in the more valuable spaces of the basement, like the rec room or bedrooms. So we're almost always in the mechanical room. And then it's just a matter of picking a spot that through experience and that we feel is going to be a good pipe routing from the suction point, which is the hole in the floor, to the exhaust point, which is the hole at the top of the wall going to the outside of the house. and having a relatively simple pipe routing in between, or as simple as we can, and picking a spot that we feel is going to be suitable for subslab communication. And there might be a variety of reasons we choose a spot. And that's probably one of the parts of this work that takes, or where we use the most of our experience to kind of pick a spot. And then we test that location with a procedure called subslab communication testing before we kind of to validate that it's a good spot before we start installing piping.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Kim from Stonewall, you have your hand up.
Yes, Pam, if should someone obtain, say, a digital tester from, say, Stonewall's library, and its measures are a little bit concerning based on the, Health Canada standard, what should they do? Should they wait the 28 days? Should they look at procuring a single test kit?
So the devices that the library uses are more accurate the more data they have. So I would certainly not make any decisions until a minimum of 7 days, but I would leave it for the full opportunity that you have for the loan, which I think is about 4 weeks maybe. So leave it for the full loan before you make a decision. And then at that point, it's not technically the 3-month test that Health Canada recommends, but you can make a decision if you want to mitigate, if the levels are high at that point, or if you want to follow up with a long-term test. Yeah, good. Thanks, Kim.
It's great to hear that there's also libraries. We have 300 libraries in British Columbia that lend devices. So it's excellent to know that you also have this program in Manitoba. Oh, Kim, you got another question?
Yeah, I like talking. Back to Pam. Where can they get the longer term single kit tester?
Yeah, so we do have a list of places to purchase them on our Take Action on Radon website. So if you go to takeactiononradon.ca, click Buy a Test, then it'll go through a number of providers that you can purchase a test. There also is a link directly to like Manitoba. So if you want to buy one from one of our Manitoba providers, you can go right there. And so you can find them as well there. There's another question about HRVs. And so this is another one that I always like to make sure we touch on, because if you do have an HRV in your home already, and you test and the levels are high, you may want to check and see that it's cleaned or balanced, because an HRV can increase the radon levels if it gets out of balance. So an HRV works where it brings fresh air in from outside, and at the same time, it should equally remove air from the house. So when it's balanced, the same amount of air is coming in and out. When it gets out of balance, it can bring in less air, but still remove the same amount of air. And so then that's depressurizing your home and drawing air in from the ground. So that is one thing that we caution if you do have an HRV, just to have a digital radon monitor so that you're constantly monitoring the radon levels, just in case. I don't know if Chase or Eric, do you have any comments on HRV and lowering levels at all?
Yeah, I would be happy to mention. Typically, HRV is not our first choice. It's kind of our second or third choice option. The best option is to prevent radon from entering in the first place, and an HRV works to dilute the kind of radon-laden air with fresh air to lower the concentration. And at best, we usually would set an expectation that we could cut the radon level in half with an HRV installation. Whereas with an active soil depressurization system, typically no matter what the pre-mitigation radon level is, we can almost always achieve a level below 100 and usually below 50.
Good. Yeah, thanks, Eric. Chase, there's a question here about dirt floor crawl space. Do you want to talk about mitigating if there's a house with dirt floor?
So yeah, there is a couple ways that you can do it. One would be submembrane depressurization. So if you can access and actually get into that crawl space, you would put a membrane, like a poly membrane down, and then you can create a suction point in from underneath that membrane and send that gas outside. I guess the other way that we kind of heard about Eric was using fans, like ventilation fans, and trying to move air through that crawl space if it's not big enough to actually get a person in there to do the polying of that crawl space. So you would put a couple fresh air intakes or a couple suction fans on the outside of that crawl space to try and get that air moving through there and dilute that radon heavy air that's in there.
Yeah, I would just, those are the most challenging projects where you have a inaccessible crawl space. And there is a variety of techniques that we wouldn't have time to talk about at length today, but there's almost always a solution. So it's usually not as simple as what we've described mostly today, but there's almost always a solution.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good.
I
Good.
am struck by the fact that no one has asked me any health questions. Usually. So I think it's because we have two technical experts with us this evening online, because usually we have more people asking about health effects, but it's good.
Yeah. Good. Oh yeah, someone correcting, right. So I see a note in the chat about clarifying that duplicate tests is the precision of them. Right. So we ship detectors to the lab and have them exposed to known levels to test their accuracy. And the duplicates is to test the precision or the consistency of, making sure the detectors are consistent. All right. Well, Anne-Marie, we do often get questions about other issues other than lung cancer. So do you want to answer that? Any other health risks?
So the evidence that radon causes lung cancer, again, was done in working age men who are otherwise healthy. And so that is the relationship, again, that's clearest. We know that exposure causes lung cancer, but what about other health effects? And what about exposures for children and women? And the answer to that question is we don't know. So we know that radon clearly causes one kind of cancer. It's possible that it's linked to leukemia and lymphoma. The federal government's lead scientist has published papers on correlations, but this is not what we call causation. So we know clearly the gas leads to lung cancer. The other health effects are, well, not unreal. They're just not the same level of certainty. So over time, as we know more about radon exposure in people who are, like in British Columbia, we're doing studies because we have a fair bit of data and we can look at different health effects. But until we have a better understanding of people's residential histories and their exposures, we're not going to be able to say with certainty, like we can with lung cancer, that certain levels of exposure lead to other kinds of cancers.
Right. Okay, good. Thanks. Well, we are at the hour point, so there's just a couple things I see left to just quickly answer. One is, yes, we will share a recording of this presentation and the slide deck in the follow-up emails. I wanted to make sure I drew attention to the fact that we use the info@takeactiononradon.ca email for a lot of our reminders, and I did get a number of people calling saying they didn't get our emails. And so I would like to suggest that you add that to your safe sender list so that those emails get through. So just check on that. The other question, a couple questions about if we've used wood heat, does that impact the radon levels using the kitchen vent fan? So it is possible. Really, honestly, we don't truly know what impact it will be in your home unless you test. But definitely things like using wood heat, kitchen vent fans, dryers, bathroom fans, if they aren't balanced with return air, then they could be depressurizing the house or just changing the airflows in your home. And so the best thing to do is, if you're curious, to test. Wood heat, really, again, it's a little bit more complicated, but if you're not, it can just change the pressures just depending on the makeup air, and it's so it might, but really the best is just to test. And yeah, so then I will just make a couple announcements before we go. I did want to highlight the fact that we do have a Radon Action Plan that we launched at our Radon Symposium in October. We will be publicly releasing it in November. So I talked about the fact that we're focusing on children exposure. We're also focusing on increasing accessibility and availability of testing and mitigation, as well as building stocks. So energy efficient, addressing radon and energy efficiency and new construction. So you can check that out in November when the 27th after we launch it, or send me an email and I'll share it with you. But we would like to see radon addressed across our province. If you are in Winnipeg on the 27th, we have got the Winnipeg sign and the bridge lit up purple. So take a picture, post it on social media, and help us with Radon Action Month and share that out. And then also we have a contest called November. So if you have learned something here today, then we ask that you would share that with somebody in your community and then take a picture that represents it and enter our contest. So you can go to knowvember.ca, so knowvember.ca to enter that contest and win prize. We have weekly draws of $50 gift cards, as well as grand prizes of Fitbit, stand-up paddleboard, a KitchenAid, and some gift cards. So check that out. And we also have a radon game. So if you want to learn more and have fun at the same time, not that this hasn't been fun, but you can play the radon game and walk around your community and find out all sorts of things about which buildings you should test. So we've got some fun things in there, and you get to level up and choose your guy. Thank you so much to all who have joined us tonight. So Krista and Lane and Kim, thank you for joining us and also for helping us with this program in your communities. We couldn't do this without you. So we really appreciate your support and your help with communicating and distributing, and then eventually with collecting the kits. So thank you to you all. And Chase and Eric, obviously there's been lots of questions for you. So really appreciate your expertise and thank you for joining us. And so thank you, Anne-Marie, as well, for Zooming in virtually from across the country. Really appreciate having you also join and helping us with this. And then, of course, all of you participants, it is important to us to reduce radon-induced lung cancer. And we can only achieve that by people taking action in their own homes. So we are really thankful that you are joining and taking this action on this to take it seriously. So thank you for joining us and taking part in this project. And we look forward to hearing from you throughout the next 3 months. And take care.